cameras. I have this habit of not like I'm quite quiet person in real life. So
Oh,
it's
don't worry. I put your volume up real loud and I got plenty of questions to ask. So
yeah.
I'm also pretty quiet in real life. It's kind of funny because people think I'm super chatty because of the YouTube, but then they meet me in person and they're like, "What? Are you shy?"
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Today, I'm very excited to bring you another live stream conversation, except this time we're here with Jere. How's it going, Jere?
Yeah, it's going very nice. Nice to be here.
And for those of you who don't know Jere, Jere is my personal favorite modder by far. Valheim was just another game for me until Expand World Prefabs. That mod turned Valheim into my game design education. And I'm so grateful because I had no idea that was even possible. And we're going to get into all of that. But to begin, I want to give the viewers a little bit of context about what Jere has done. So I'm just going to go here real quick. We're going to open a window over here and we're going to go to Jere's Thunderstore page. And we can see how active Jere has been. Jere has made mods like Expand Data, Expand World Prefabs, World Edit, Expand Music, Dungeon Splitter, Upgrade World, Infinity Hammer, Item Stand All Items, Structure Tweeps. He's made correct me if I'm wrong, but I think someone else started Better Continents and then you took it over. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. So Better Continents, render limits, expand spawns, server dev commands, player scaling, expand events or support, ESP, projectile collision, smoke collision, expand world size, expand rivers, expand factions, cron job, dream text, vanity ruler, expand world code, wearable trophies, peaceful mode, server sync fix, archon commands, DPS, stone portal, and save recovery. I don't even know what half of these are, but today we're going to focus on three in particular: Infinity Hammer, Expand World Prefabs, and Upgrade World. So, to begin, why don't we start a bit about how Upgrade World started? Could you give us some context there?
Yeah, upgrade world. It's like maybe the cleanest. Actually, I have one question. How do you walk in this game?
C.
See,
Yeah, I had to figure that out with Dakar as well.
yeah, yeah. So upgrade world was very simple. Like like people had these they had playing the game, and then Iron Gate made some update, and now they have old worlds, and then they run this issue that they don't get the new content there, and that was a big issue back then. So that's when I figured out that there should be some way to reset the world, and that's how we got the upgrade world mod.
So just to be clear, basically Valheim's come out in early access, right? So that means there's certain biomes that are in placeholder in the beginning, or they're not complete. But then Iron Gate releases the biome, but then without Upgrade World, you can't play on an old world, especially if you installed the or you explored the biome, because it's all the old stuff, right?
Yeah,
So what Upgrade World allows us to do, for those of you watching, is it allows you to apply the latest biome update. You can pretty much like replace the old biome with the new one, allowing you to keep using the same world file, because that's not actually possible without dev tools. But I would say that's actually the lesser used function of Upgrade World. Could you talk a bit about some of the other things that you can do with Upgrade World?
yeah. That's actually that evolved a bit. Like when it's another big issue. Like when you have server with lots of people, like public server, people come, play, some leave, different progression. So then we have this issue that all the like all the copper deposits have been mined, dungeons cleared. So people needed a way to reset their world so that new people can get resources. So I think that's how people are now using it mostly.
Yeah, and not just the copper nodes. Also, like for me, the big thing is the dungeons because the metals respawning. I mean, that's definitely nice, but for gameplay, at least for me, the thing that like I don't really like about vanilla Valheim is once you find a dungeon, like one, the dungeon could be kind of small because it's RNG. It might not be a big dungeon, and then you clear it and like it's done. You never go in that dungeon again unless it's for some mushrooms or something. So with Upgrade World, you can actually make every location in the game just respawn. It makes the regeneration apply, except whenever you want, and then you can combine that with cron job to make automatic respawn schedules. So Jere has given us these tools that allow us to really kind of put the replayability back in the game. So
Yeah, especially if you use some other mods that can randomize the dungeon, then you can end up with some new experience every time.
yeah, because isn't that so? You can change now. I think that's an expand world data thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can get into that when we talk about data. I guess for now, I'll make sure to. I'll just go through a bit of the history of each one, and then we can get to that. So, is there anything else with expand or upgrade world? Let's see. Okay. So upgrade world is useful for a bunch of different reasons, actually. We've covered the two main ones, which are that you can add new content to an old world, and also that you can respawn locations. But it's actually not just that. It also gives you a bunch of incredibly useful object editing commands where you can edit every object on the entire server. You can remove every ghost on the entire server. And these are really, really useful. Is that something it started with? Like specifically the objects count, objects list? When did those enter the
Well,
picture?
I'm trying to think. I I don't think there was actually any need for those. I just added them. Sometimes I just add some stuff for no
Well,
for
I've
no
needed the
particular
stuff you've
reason.
added. I
Well,
mean,
actually, I had this one moment when I was thinking, like, how many objects there are in the world. So that I did this object count. Like I generated the whole world, and then I did the objects count to kind of get an idea, like how many trees there are and stuff like this.
yeah.
But there was no real use case when I did those.
And so just so people know, this is what we're talking about. Upgrade World gives you these different commands, like you can do objects count, right? And then let's say we want to count the number of ghosts on the server. There's 130 ghosts on the server. And then we could figure out where those ghosts are if we do objects list ghost. Oops, if I spell ghost right, that'll work. And then it tells us the exact coordinate of every single entry. So these, as far as server development goes, I know Jere just said it's just a random thing, but this is huge when you're trying to figure out what's wrong or you're trying to fix a problem that like a player made joining with a random mod. You can just remove things. You can replace entire systems just with one quick command. So personally, I wanted to thank you specifically for that objects list and objects count. Those things are really, really useful for they take like tasks as a server manager that would take 30 minutes and they make it like 30 seconds. So you saved me so much time.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah, especially when I procedurally spawn like an infinite powerful diverger that can't be killed across the entire world by mistake. Yeah, I was able to just get rid of that in like 2 seconds thanks to you.
Yeah, that's actually one use case. Like if you like this kind of map development and testing, because you can kind of undo things if you mess up.
Yeah, exactly. And I mess up a lot, so that's surprising. Yeah, that's always useful. But one thing I want to get at as well is your development style. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because you mentioned like you seem to add things pretty casually, like you have an idea or something and you'll just throw it on. Like do you are you ever surprised by what people do with your mods?
Well, yeah, it's they sometimes try quite stupid things. That always surprises me. But well, there's some good stuff too, and it's like kind of important to know what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big part of the development that to have people testing things and how I can make things work nicely is how to get feedback from people. So otherwise it's just like, well, as I said before, I don't like play this game. I don't have my own server. I don't use these tools like for real. So that's why it's important to have people using them and telling me what's wrong and things like that.
You have the skills to make them and other people just don't. I mean, you don't have to get too much into your programming and how you learn that and stuff, but how do you develop things very quickly, yeah? Like, do you realize that? You move very fast. Like, I'll see you, like, someone will have a post in Discord and they'll casually bring something up. And then, like, 3 days later, you've pushed out a test for us. And it's like, how I know you're busy and stuff. So how do you manage that? Like, I don't really understand. It's quite impressive.
Well, I think it's most of the changes are quite simple. Maybe they take like 15 minutes or half an hour. So it's mostly when I have some time to do those things.
So you're probably very familiar with them, I'd say, right? So okay, let me put it this way. When you update one of your mods, how often do you have to learn something new to update it?
Oh, I don't think very often anymore. Like only something very small. Because I mostly know Valheim code already. Like maybe 95% of it. But sometimes there's something I have not checked before. But I don't usually have to like figure out how to do something. It's quite easy for me
That
because I have
makes
been developing quite a long time already.
Yeah, that makes sense because I can, like I said, I can tell by how quickly things happen that it must not take you very long. Because so just for those of you guys who are watching, basically here is Discord, right? And Yer has this Valheim World editing Discord channel, right? And I think we could get into the history of this a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you used to be part of Odin's Plus, and then Raka suggested to get a different group. Is that correct? Or to have your own place?
Yeah, in the Odin Plus they have this public test releases place. Like
Mm-hmm.
anyone can just put their mods there for testing. But then it kind of got crowded. And this own Discord server is something I've been thinking for a long time. But I didn't want to do it because it's actually very annoying that like everyone has their own server and then you have to kind of so many communities to keep track of. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to add a new one. But then it kind of had to be done.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, in all honesty, this Discord group, Valheim World Editing. So for those of you guys who haven't been here, there's two main places. There's this chat, this EWP place, and then there's also this config share thing here, where people share. Well, it used to be configs, but now it's mostly EWP scripts. And personally, I've never been involved with the community that is as supportive as the Valheim world editing Discord. I like my personal education with Expand World Prefabs is from that group. If it wasn't for that group, I wouldn't have learned. Like, I'm not a person who is able to get that motivated by just looking at the docs and these things. I need interactions with people. I need to ask people questions. So I'm really glad that whatever led to Valheim world editing existing all happened, because now I can confidently tell people, like, look, if you want to go somewhere you can learn and be treated well, like, I can just talk about your group. I don't have to make my own or anything like that. So hats off there. It's really, really incredible what that community is like. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, I don't think you should thank me because it's mostly the other people. Like I haven't done much like for the Discord server actually.
You could have been more stubborn and stopped them from doing that for you. You could have stopped Ashenius from helping out so much. You could have stopped Raka. You could have said no, and you didn't. So thank you for all that. And I know you're very humble, so I'm never gonna get you to be like, yeah, that's true. So we can move on now. We've talked a bit about Upgrade World, but I think really the mod that people will recognize more and know more about is Infinity Hammer. So why don't you elaborate a bit about what led to that? Because it didn't start straight away, right? Like Valheim came out and there was no Infinity Hammer.
Yeah, no. Well, it's a long story. But in the beginning of Valheim early access, when it was released, that's some years ago. So I did my first mod. It was this ESP mod where you can visualize all kind of stuff. Because there were people on Reddit talking about these serpent spawners. So then I had to make a mod that visualizes all the spawners to see that no, there are no serpent spawners in the world. They all come from the random zone spawn system. So that's how it started. And then I added some, for test purposes, I added these like admin command things, which I then had to split off to my most popular mod by far, server Devcommands. And then, of course, people wanted more and more commands and more admin stuff. And like this vanilla spawn command, it's not like very flexible, so I did my own. But then I noticed that that's the mod is growing too big. So that's how we got the world edit commands. Some strategies.
So it started with ESP, and ESP adds a bunch of tooltips and information so you can see what's really going on. And then that branched into server Devcommands, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, world edit commands. And world edit commands is like, let's see, how do I explain this? So it's like, it allows you to, it gives you more dev commands, but the end result is vanilla. Is that a good way to say it?
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much.
And
then, do I continue my story or do you have...
here, I see we actually went to a different path here. So why don't we die real quick? We went to the wrong path. So, do you mind dying real quick?
What a question.
Here you go. I can there you go, nice. So pretty much Jere has made a bunch of incredible tools that have allowed us to adjust all of the fields and the data in the game. And it started with ESP, and then that evolved into server dev commands and world edit commands. And these are really powerful mods but they're not what I'm going to focus on today. Because
Yeah.
today I really want to get more into expand world prefabs. That's what we're going to talk more about, and I want to talk also about the features in EWP. But before that, let's go on to Infinity Hammer. So you mentioned world edit commands and these development stuff, but these are more like you have to type commands, you have to do field editing, that kind of thing. So where does Infinity Hammer come into the picture?
Yeah, that's actually what you just said. We had this player, Jere the Viking. I think you might
Yes,
recognize
yeah,
the name.
yeah. I recognize Jere.
So he was like, oh, Jere, World edit command is nice, but this is so much work, like typing all the commands.
Yeah.
Why can't we just use the hammer for this? Then I was like, okay, let's make a mod that allows you to do these things with hammer. And then we got the Infinity Hammer.
Let's see, just so people know, Infinity Hammer pretty much um, it allows you to do all sorts of crazy nonsense. So if I wanted to, for example, I could select this bridge and then look, I just selected the entire bridge, like the whole thing. And it was that fast. One click, boom. And that's just like one of the things Infinity Hammer can do. It's really, really powerful. But as Yer mentioned, it's pretty much it ties actions and development stuff to your in-game hammer, and that makes it much more user-friendly. So you're basically saying that Yurok was like, "Hey, can we get a more user-friendly version of this that
Yeah,
doesn't allow typing?" And that's how it started.
yeah, that's just it. It was just quality of life feature.
And so I would imagine this is one of those situations where people started being like, they started showing you the stupid things that they'll try and do with your mods.
Yeah, then it got much easier to do things and to make big messes.
So let's go into that a little bit. How did Infinity Hammer evolve? Because I think it was simpler when it started, right? Like, for example, it didn't have blueprint compatibility. Like now you can save blueprints with it, you can place them. It's awesome, it's incredible. But when it first started, it wasn't like that, right?
Yeah, it didn't do much initially, but then people keep asking always more features and more stuff. And about blueprints, that was mostly about the custom data. Because in the plan build blueprints, you can only specify some things like sign text and item stand item. But if you wanted to have some custom things, it wasn't possible with plan build. So that's why I had to kind of add the support myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so just so those of you guys listening understand, with Yare's mods, you can customize the data, but it's still like vanilla friendly, if that makes sense. It's just like if you add custom data to something, vanilla Valheim won't do anything with it. But it can still like have that data there, and then you can use that data in scripts, which is usually what I would do. I'm sure there's some other reasons to use custom data, but when Yer says custom data, and correct me if I'm wrong, Yer, but you're talking about data fields that like mods or we add that aren't already in vanilla Valheim game objects. Is that correct?
Well, that too, but it's actually much simpler than that. Like if you want a creature with infinite health or this structure with -1 health, that's not possible with plan build because it's not saving that information. So
Ah, gotcha.
I think one important is the being able to make buildings that can be destroyed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because plan build, to be honest, it's more. It was designed more as a way to play Valheim with blueprint compatibility, not so much as a server development tool. That you can use plan build that way, but it's for that usage pretty overcomplicated in all honesty. The thing plan build shines on is when players want to have blueprinting organically in the game in a gamified way, and they want to be able to build and share blueprints with each other on a server. Plan build is really, really good for that. So it still has its cases where it's good, but as you mentioned, now Infinity Hammer allows you to do custom data. You can place invincible buildings. I mean, I use it all the time. Like this arena we're entering now, this is a place to fight Eikthyr. And like these rocks and stuff are invincible so that the destructive forces of Eikthyr don't just wreck the meadow all the time. And this was all made with the stuff Jere is talking about. So Infinity Hammer started as a way to sort of make the more technical data heavy stuff more approachable to a typical player, right?
Yeah, it's like I think the main use, the first use was simply spawning object. Like you want to place a tree.
Uh,
It's much easier with hammer than trying to
oh,
spawn with console command.
I can show them. Yeah, no, I know exactly what to show. So let's say I want to spawn an oak one, for example. With vanilla Valheim commands, I have to position my character exactly in the right place, and then that oak one is going to spawn right in front of me. And you can even tell that it's like floating a little bit, right? Because it spawns where my character is. And it's always going to have the exact same rotation. Whereas if I use Infinity Hammer, I just go hammer, oak, one. And then now I can place the oak anywhere I point at, allowing me to much more easily customize the area, right? Like I can just place these trees really quickly. I don't have to run around with my character. So
Yeah,
that's
and
what Jere
scaling
was
too.
talking about. And the scaling, yeah, making it bigger and smaller. Yeah, good point.
So if you can do all of that with world edit commands. Like you can spawn with offset, you can spawn with scaling, rotate, but it's bit takes some effort like to
Yeah, it's time
spawn,
consuming,
spawn
right?
yeah, spawn something and okay, you want a little bit different scale. Okay, spawn again,
Yeah.
move it a bit. It's not really usable for building anything.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of how I look at world edit commands is it's the way I learn what fields are available that I can mess with. So like if I'm writing a script or something, I'll use world edit commands and I'll run up to this bonfire and then I'll dump its fields so I can look at all of them. And then that gives me inspiration for then what I can mess with the script. But it's like it's very useful in like a surgical way when you want to look at one specific thing. Um, Although there are like bulk field edit commands, right? Is that part of world edit or upgrade
Yeah,
world?
well, they both have this feature, but world edit commands, it's client side, so you can only edit what you can see.
Ah, I see. Okay. I get it. I get it.
Like you can edit what is nearby, but you can't edit what your client doesn't know.
Yeah,
The
you can't
server
edit the
knows.
whole server. Yeah. So you would use upgrade world to like actually handle stuff across the entire server. Where if you were just managing, a building you're looking at, you could use world edit commands to, replace all of the roof tiles with a thatch roof tile or tar roof tile instead of the thatch roof, right?
Yeah,
And so just so people are clear what field edit commands are, you can basically use a console line and then like swap objects or delete them, and you can even filter which objects you delete. So let's say that you wanted to get rid of all of the special 3-star ghosts you made across the world, but you don't want to delete the normal ghosts. You could run a command that's like objects, remove, ghost, but then F equals or filter, and then make sure that it only gets rid of ghosts that have the certain custom data you're trying to remove. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm very bad at. I know very little about field editing because I've always been able to get away with doing other stuff. But Rocco's good at it, and he's shown me some things that's like, wow, I didn't even know that's possible. But I'd say it's a
Yeah.
good time. Oh, go on.
Yeah, there's lots of different options. I'm not sure if anyone knows or remembers all of them.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a hidden talent, field editing. Most people use other stuff, and they don't even know that it's possible to do things with field edits. So why
So
don't why
which
don't
way here?
this way? Yeah, we're going down the
Each.
main path.
Yep.
So why don't we talk a little bit about how Expand World Prefab started? Because this is oof. Okay, before you do that, let me just babble a little bit here. So Yere's got loads of mods. You all know that. You've seen that. We've mentioned some of the more popular ones like Server Devcommands, Infinity Hammer, etc. Okay, I'm gonna speak probably what you all might consider hyperbolically here, but I have a feeling this mod, Expand World Prefabs, has changed Valheim like completely, and people don't even know. Like most people have no idea what can be done with Expand World Prefabs. And so before I get into like why I think it's so wonderful, could you talk a bit about like how did it start? Because I'm assuming you didn't expect people would be like making crazy custom changed Valheim worlds and entire like using your tools like game development engines. But did you expect that? Like what happened in the beginning?
Well, it's a long story. It was actually the idea came up when I was doing like this structure tweaks and spawner tweaks mods. I was thinking it would be nice to have, well, the mod was called logic tweaks back then, that it would be nice to have some way to react to what happens in the game world and make things interact with each other. But the first version that I had, it wasn't good. It wasn't really working. So I kind of abandoned the idea for like a year, I think. But then during that time, the Iron Gate did this field update that you can edit object properties, and that opened so many possibilities that then I reopened this logic tweaks idea and figured out a good way to, well, I think it's a good way to make these scripts happen. The original idea was quite different than what we have now.
So could you elaborate a little bit? What was that update that Iron Gate? Because I'm always looking for any reason to be grateful for something Iron Gate did. I feel like I'm kind of starved of that sometimes. So you just said that they did an update that made it possible for EWP to exist and be more reliable. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was the Mount, Mountain Cave
Yeah, the Frost
update,
Cave update. I think
Frost Cave.
that was like the
So
second one or
that's
something.
that's when they added this field loading feature that you can like, well, do a lot more things. Like if you have some spawner, you can change what mob is spawning, and you can all
Ah.
do this vanilla compatible. So then it was possible to have this server side. Like that was one big problem I had previously, that I wanted to make a server side mod. because if the mod needs a client, then it's a bit different thing then.
Yeah, I mean, then it's just another Valheim mod. It's not a game-changing situation, at least
Yeah.
from my perspective. So, is that kind of how... Okay, I think I understand, because there's a lot of fields that we can't mess with because they're like nested. Hey, it's Gitstorm. Welcome, welcome, Kit. So there's a lot of fields we can't mess with because they're like nested in a parent object or something, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically what you're describing is before this process, everything was like that?
Yeah. Everything. So you could only change what vanilla Valheim is already using, like health, I think, and so you so not much.
Yeah, nothing. So basically that means that Frost Caves is now my favorite Iron Gate update ever by far, leaps and bounds. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was a good update.
That's really cool. Okay, awesome. So, Expand World Prefabs. Okay, it started. You tried to make something else, and then that wasn't really possible. And then a year passed, and Iron Gate did this update that made a lot of the fields accessible to the server or the client or whatever you want to call it, right? So what happens next? That update comes out. You realize, okay, now I can do these changes. What's next?
Well, I think I just did something there, like for the first EVP version. I don't think there was much plan. It was like kind of prototype, proof of concept that you can do things from the server side. I didn't know if it was like going to work, but I think it did.
Oh, it definitely did.
That was like the issue I had before, that if you can't do much, then it won't be very useful. So that's why the field Frost Cave update was important. Because I have lots of ideas, but if I think it's like too complicated and doesn't do much, then it's not
Yeah, then you do
much
something
use.
else. It's not worth the time necessarily. I understand. Oh, something got me. It's all right. I'll catch up to you in a moment.
Yep.
So EWP comes out, and you're thinking of it. It's not super advanced yet. It's more of a proof of concept thing. When do you see somebody first start using it? Like what? How does that go down? Because I feel like when it first came out, were people even aware of how they could use it? Like, what did you see people doing with it?
Well, I think the first version you only had this spawn support type. What is it? Type create.
Yeah, on type create, on type destroy.
Yeah, no, you only had the type. Actually, there wasn't even this type because there was only this. You could only make scripts that react to something being created. So
That's
that's the
that's funny because that's actually the only thing I did in the beginning was that. So it makes sense actually. It's because it's something that's easier for people to wrap their heads around, I'd say. So let's just get out of this little death zone here, and then I'll explain that. So basically what you're saying is when it started, it had what's now known as on-type create. So in EWP, there's loads of different kinds of scripts you could make, loads of different things you could react to or do. But one of the simpler ones is that, okay, we got to take a step back because some people might not even know what a prefab is. You see the wolf head on Jere's face? That is a wolf trophy. That's called a prefab. It stands for prefabricated, I believe. And the game isn't saying, okay, let's put this part, the wolf cheek. Okay, here's the wolf's eye. We're gonna put it there. Okay, then it's not making everything. It's just loading one prefabricated object, a prefabricated game object, in the game files of a wolf's head. So every time the game makes a wolf head, it doesn't have to make it from scratch. It just loads that already made game object. Is that what a prefab is from your perspective? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-oh.
It's like nice. I think it's like Unity, like the Iron Gate is using the Unity framework. So I think it's a term from that.
A term used within Unity. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically, when you're playing vanilla Valheim, every time you see something show up, it is a prefab being created. So when a monster spawns in front of you, the prefab for that monster is being created. If you hear a sound, like for example, if I go spawn SFX, like coins destroyed, you hear a noise. Well, you might not in the stream, because I don't know how I set the Valheim volume, but you hear a noise, and that itself is a prefab. Every visual, every sound, everything in the game is a prefab. And so what Jere's saying is when the mod started, when Expand World Prefabs started, you could react to the creation of these prefabs in the normal game. Is that right?
Yeah, you could only do that. And then you could spawn other stuff or... So it's not much.
No, I mean, that's how the entire loot system on Path of Magic only uses that. Because it's like, okay, every time there is a ragdoll created, then spawn this. And it has a weight. So like a chance to spawn it, right? And then it has just like 1,000 of those entries. Obviously, there's better ways to do it. But that's how I started, was just making these loot that you would get sometimes when you killed something. Because in Valheim, the loot is pretty predictable. Like Grey Dwarfs will drop resin, or Grey Dwarf eyes, wood and stone. You're not going to get anything else from them, right? Like there's a series of items that you can get, and you get them every time or you don't. But you're not going to get like a rare drop from a monster in Valheim. But with Expand World Prefabs, you can make it so 1% of the time that a monster dies, it drops something specific. And you could make it so it's when a Grey Dwarf dies, when a troll dies. It adds a great level of customization. So it makes sense to me, Jere, that it started with like type create or type destroy, because those ones they're easier to wrap the head around, I would say.
Yeah, that's how the logic tweaks worked back then. That was what I had done in that, so it was a good starting point. But
So
then we had new features and things like that happening.
what's the first one that comes to mind?
Well, the second type was the removing, just when something is destroyed. But that was pretty big too. But I think the poke system is something that changed everything.
Yeah, I was I was about to ask that, but I figured maybe there was something in before pokes. Because when people start scripting, that's kind of like their journey. They start, they're kind of confused. They do some things. They copy paste things from other people, and then what really determines if they get into scripting or not is pokes. So at this point in the mod's history, pokes don't exist yet, but we have type create and type destroy. So just to remind people, type create's when it shows up for the first time. Type destroy is when it's removed. So when you kill a troll, the troll gets removed, right?
Yeah.
So that's another way to make a trigger. And I'll just be clear with people one more time. When I use the word trigger, I'm saying what we react to. Because remember, EWP is vanilla friendly, and we make scripts that cause things to happen. How do we figure out when those things are going to happen. That's the trigger. So what Jere and I have been discussing is type creates and type destroys, which are the trigger. They're the thing that starts the logic. And then there's other stuff we haven't mentioned, like you can spawn things with EWP. So like basically all EWP scripts follow that format. There is the trigger and the response to the trigger. Would you say that's accurate?
Yep. Yeah, that's the base logic how it works, and that's the concept that's actually works great.
And so when do pokes come into the picture? How does that how does that start?
Yeah, that was kind of that was one big issue that it's you couldn't make objects react to each other. Like you could only do some trigger and something spawns or is destroyed, but you couldn't like you couldn't when you have something triggering, you couldn't transfer like transfer it forward. And
Yeah.
with poking, like poke doesn't it doesn't happen itself. Like it can't start the trigger chain. You always need something else, like something being created or destroyed. After that, you can use the poke action, which then trigger other actions. That made many things much easier.
Oh, and it made everything possible, really. I mean, I'd say poking is what turned EWP into a like game development tool. Because before
Yeah,
that, the scripts had to be very, it was like very complicated to make something complicated. Definitely not easy. Because you had to like make something that created something else that created a spawner that then created something else that then, so like you could sort of do it, right? But it was
yeah,
definitely complicated. So is that what, was it seeing people do that in a complicated way that led you to make poking? Or how did that go?
yeah. I think it was like maybe Raka was doing something very weird,
Raka doing something very weird. I believe it.
spawning
Definitely.
spawning all kind of stuff to trigger things. Because that was the only way you could do things. You could have to
Yeah.
spawn something, and then you could. But then I figured out that it would be nice to like streamline it, that you don't need to do any weird stuff. So that's how we got the poking system.
And so just so people understand, because at this point, like, there aren't that many people who know what poking is in Valheim and EWP. So I need to make sure that now that we've entered this territory, I'm very clear with what's going on. As we mentioned earlier, you could only do like when this gets destroyed, do this. When this gets created, do that. But let's say you want to move the logic to another object. Like, okay, the troll's killed, but now that the troll's killed, I want my house to get its fire refueled. Okay, yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense, but you have to move the logic out of the troll and to your house or to the fires in your house. And before, we didn't have a simple way to do that. Like it was very complicated and it was unreliable even when we were able to get, or Rocco was able to get things to work, right? So
Yeah,
then Yer makes pokes. And pokes are super awesome. So let me actually see. One second. I think I could actually just show. Let me make sure I don't walk off this bridge. One second. I got to stop for a moment so I can open up this. Okay, here we go. So I'll just do like a really, really, really basic script so you guys understand. We're gonna make it so like, okay, a boar, when it gets created, it's going to spawn some, let's say, resin. Okay, it's very, very, very simple. And if you look at this, let me just make it in colored real quick. Yeah, I'm showing a Sublime text screen and just giving them a little bit of basics so they understand here. This is how it started. We had this prefab bore type create, right? So you could then react to the creation of the bore by spawning something. But
Yeah.
that's pretty simple. You couldn't really go too much further than that. So what Jere added is this thing called poke. So now you can just add poke and then say prefab, and we're going to go with, I don't know, like campfire or something. That's probably not the right prefab, but imagine that is the right prefab. Then we go limit 1, max distance, let's say 20, and then parameter equals the name of the poke. And so then we go down here and we do another entry for the prefab that we are poking, which in this case is this campfire. And then here, instead of type create or type destroy, we do type poke and then the name of the poke we just made. So this is what we're talking about. Jere added the ability to change where the logic is occurring and target anything anywhere else in the world. It completely changed how we can develop things. And did you realize how powerful that was when you updated it?
Yeah, I think I did because otherwise I don't think I would have added it because, like you said, it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
It's like you can do everything. So it had to be powerful that it made sense to use it instead of just spawning some effects and triggering. So I think I had some idea that it would kind of help to simplify. Like it's kind of hard to understand the poking at first because it's abstract concept, but then
Yeah.
it kind of cleans up. Then moves the complexity out of your scripts.
Oh, yeah, it's a game changer. It is an absolute game changer. Like you can make some cool scripts without poking, but once you start poking, you can rework anything in Valheim. You can change anything you want. You can make anything cause anything else to happen. If you want the game to completely change when a boss dies, you can do that. It's absolutely incredible how much pokes opened everything up. And like for those of you watching, you might think, "Oh, okay, the pokes started happening and then that was it. That's all we needed." But there's something else we're going to get to that I actually like even more than pokes, because at this point, yeah, we have poking and that's great, but we still have the trigger issue. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these scripts, you do something in response to a trigger, but you have to have that initial trigger. And when Jere releases pokes at this point in the timeline, we are still limited with what we can trigger off of. Could you elaborate a little bit what I'm talking about here, Jere?
Yeah, well, it was technically possible, like again with this, if you can spawn something like every 5 seconds, and then you can check some object data that is has the value changed or not, but that was not really, no one did that because it wasn't really usable. So then we got this new trigger change, and that was actually there some time in the code. It was working probably months before it was released, before I told anyone about it, because the first version was not very efficient. So I had to come up with some better solution. But yeah, after that we got another big thing was the change. So whenever something changes in the game world, you get the trigger on that one. So then you could make many things much more easier. Like if you open a door state changes, you can make a trigger of that.
Yeah, and that it was a complete game changer for me. Once I started to grasp what type change could do, it filled in the missing gap, if that makes sense. Before, I felt like EWP, it's like it was very powerful, very cool, but there were certain things you had to do with it that were pretty gimmicky. Like you had to learn how to use like monster spawners to make things show up in a loop and these kind of things. And it was very, as you just mentioned, abstract. Like the reason people have a bit of trouble with pokes because they're abstract. A lot of the things in EWP were like that. But then there was this issue of triggering things. But then once type change came out, suddenly anytime any data changes on the server, that's now an eligible trigger. It was, oh, I can't even, I don't even know how to explain to them how powerful that is here.
Yeah, it makes things very easy that were very complicated before. That's always good. So you can make more complicated stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ever find that funny how like the more you simplify things for us, the more complicated we use we make?
Yeah,
Makes sense?
bigger problems.
Yeah. Oh, do you need like a frost thing?
Yeah, I only have
Oh,
this
1 second.
bad cape.
Oh, did you get that? There's a wolf cape in front of you. Maybe you don't see it.
No, it's
It's spawned, but for some reason I guess you can't see it. Well, let's just run. You'll get out of the... There's a plains right here, so if you run down here, maybe you won't die.
let's run.
I think it'll be just in time.
Oh yeah, I have 3 health points left.
Yeah, just in time. That's funny. So yeah, basically before we had this issue with triggering things, and then Jere releases type change, and suddenly there's no more triggering limit. It literally is gone. Now any event in the game is a trigger. And just to be clear about this, like before we couldn't really do proximity of the player very easily. So let's say like you want a diverger to tell you a message when you go up to them. That was hard to do before because we had to wait for the player to like get close and do something. So we could use the player jumping, we could use the player punching, we could use like maybe the player getting hit because it spawns like a damage thing that we can react to. But we couldn't so easily just react to anything like we can now. And that really opened everything up. I would say for me, once you released type change, that was when I was like, holy crap, I can now use this for practicing game development. Anything you can imagine, you can make with EWP now. It's remarkable.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. To make things easy and nice.
And so now I want to learn a little bit more about your kind of development style because I get this impression that for you, this is like how you play Valheim. You like check the Discord group, you see what people are talking about, and then whatever you feel inspired to work on, you work on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So what's that normally like? Like what kind of things do you like working on compared to things that you're like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, I think the preference is the server side is like, and you can kind of see that now I've been mostly working on EWP, but then I have some client side mods like structure tweaks or spawner tweaks that are not really getting any development time. So I think that's what fascinates me is that what you can do from the server.
I mean,
because if you do a client mod, there's like no limits. You can do anything because but with on server side you have to kind of play by the rules and find new ways.
and so what Yere's getting at, just so those of you listening, the Valheim modding community is big, but in general, it's almost all stuff you have to install on the client. The client is the person playing Valheim, their version of Valheim. So what Yer just said is that he prefers now to focus on the server side stuff, like expand world prefabs. So why is that? Why are you more interested in the server side tools?
Well, I think there's lack of like not many people doing those server side, and it's nice that you can have like console players, and it's also easier for people when they don't have to install any mods.
Yeah.
And I think there's kind of I think that's why some people like this EWP is because like you have some limits, and when you have limits you get this creativity.
Yes. But
Yeah.
do you want to elaborate that a bit more? How do you think having limits influences creativity?
Well, that's when you have to kind of find new ways, find the limits. Server side has some big limits what you can do, so then it's kind of interesting what can be done. But with client side, you don't need to figure out anything if you do a client side mod that people have to install because you can just do it. Like you can change any code.
Yeah.
But with server side, you have to kind of find the way. So it's more challenging.
So you're basically saying that when you have to develop within constraints, that's actually a more enjoyable creative process because of the challenge of trying to figure out how to get it to work. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then also that's what kind of decides which mod gets some love and which mod is never gets updates.
That makes sense. Also because the things you do, I mean, I don't know. I could just not know about them, but I don't know of other server-side mods that allow, like EWP is the only one I know about at least that allows you to do something actually server-side. All the other server-side mods I know about are, it's like very minimal quality of life stuff. It's not, I mean, like there's stuff like better networking, older versions of Discord connector, right? Like it's not common at all for a mod to be just server side, is it?
Yeah, there are not many. But I think we have some new ones. Like we have this server side quality of life mod, which was released like maybe few months ago. So
What's the
that's
name of it again? Can you say it?
server side quality of life, I think.
Ah, server side. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I know about quality of life mod because that's what people use to cheat. But I don't
Yeah,
know about server side quality of life mod.
yeah, I think like it has like it does things that you can do with EWP, but it's of course easier when you have like a mod automatically doing those things.
Yeah.
So it can be useful to use it first, and then if you can do something, then look into EWP.
And
It has
so
some kind of auto stacking and infinity fuel and I think things like that.
and so yeah, this is where Dakar got death skitoed yesterday. Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, and you got death skitoed here too. No.
No,
I literally turned. I
it was
turned
a
to
trap.
look at Dakar's thing, and then I also there he is. There's the little bugger. This is these live streams are a great illustration of Valheim lag issues. Because every time this has happened, I can't even see the Deathsquito that killed the other person. Like, but all right, we're back in the center now. There you are. I see you.
Yeah, I'm stealing some food.
Yeah, speaking of custom data, so this is something actually a world edit commands thing, just to go back to that. But basically, this is a campfire, and normally campfires spawn these cinders, but they have a field for the prefab of the cinder. And if you just replace that prefab with the name of something else, you can make a campfire that just routinely spawns any object in the game. So this campfire spawns grilled necktail. And unfortunately, it does give you a little, there's like a little error in BepInEx that freaks people out. But aside from that, it works great. Just an illustration of how things like world edit commands can be used. And this what you're seeing here, this is how Dakar and 9byte made the adventure map by editing these things. So I'd like to
Nice
ask you about that. What did you think about the adventure map?
I think it's, well, I have not played it, but I think
You know about it though.
yeah, and I've seen some videos, and I think it's quite interesting what they were able to do, because that's only like there's no EWP there, so it's all right, if I'm correct. It's only like
Yeah, it's all one.
modifying.
It's all a world file.
Yeah, so there's no mods you have to use, not even server side mods. So it's kind of interesting tricks that
Yeah.
have to be used to do something.
And it's remarkable. Did you expect that somebody would be able to do something so? I mean, let me put it this way: that map was such a big deal that Asmongold reacted to it, and you can even see bumps in the Google Trend analytical data for Valheim when all of that was happening. So like
Yeah,
a
that's pretty cool.
community person or a group of people used one of your mods and did something so impactful that it was comparable to an Iron Gate update. Like, do you realize that?
No, but that sounds pretty nice.
It's freaking awesome, man. That's like one of the reasons that inspired me. And like, I have this notion that maybe if we just keep showing people how to use these tools, that eventually, like, someone's going to make something and it's going to be so good, it's going to outperform base Valheim. And then maybe Iron Gate will be like, hey, okay, here's Steam Workshop for you. You know, I like it. I feel like maybe we can do something like that. But
Yeah, maybe
really,
one day.
again, you've done such great work. It's been incredible. So if any of you watching want to ask anything, like now's a great time to ask questions in the chat. If you want me to ask Jere anything in particular, I'll mention some things Raka said earlier, because we were using the words client side, and as Raka pointed out, some people might not know really what client side and server side is. So client side is when only you, the player, download the mod. Server side is when the mod is running on the server that you're playing on. So most mods are either client side or both, client side and server side. So a client side mod, you could just download, log into any server. A both situation, you wouldn't be able to get onto the server probably because it's not installed there. So it has to be installed on both the client and the server. This is why only server side stuff is so unusual, because almost always, if it's server side, it requires the client as well. It's not technically only server side, but the things Jere's been doing recently, expand World Prefabs, are only server side. And that's what makes it so powerful. You make those changes, no one needs any mods to try them out. It's
Yeah, it makes
crazy, isn't it?
yeah, much simpler to for the people joining your server.
And so, let's see. I know for me personally, so I guess I'll tell you a little bit about how you've inspired me because um so like my dream basically is game development. My dad died when I was a kid. Video games helped me deal with that. Video games have been a huge part of my life, and I've seen that most games are hurting people, but games can be an incredibly therapeutic, useful thing. At least that's what I always believed. I just wasn't sure how exactly to get that to happen, how to make gaming more positive for people. But then when I started dabbling with Valheim, it's like, oh, okay, wow, Valheim is this co-op game, right? So people work together. That's pretty cool. That's already more positive. But then the way that you made EWP, like, this has totally changed my philosophy for game development, yeah, because now like what you've done with EWP and Valheim, that's what I want to make as a game that's official and on purpose. Because I see that what you've done pretty much is you've put the power of game development in the hands of the players. And I have a feeling that that's going to be the key to fixing this kind of, let's call it a PR problem that Iron Gate has, where there are issues and players are frustrated with their development speed. I have a feeling they wouldn't be that frustrated if they knew about EWP. Like if all of them knew about EWP. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, they could then do it themselves. But I think it's kind of nice that like I think that's one awesome part of EWP is that it's a force multiplier. It enhances kind of everything. Like vanilla Valheim has lots of different objects and all kind of things you can do, especially if you can combine them to do different new things. So they can't like EWP is only great because of vanilla Valheim.
Yeah.
Because the systems you can use the systems there and make new systems and that's actually one use of one EWP2 is using it with other mods. I think what people have been doing is using the marketplace mod that you can do like quests and NPCs and stuff like that. But it has some limits, but then you can use the EWP to kind of fill the gaps. If the mod doesn't do what you want it to do, then you can use EWP.
Oh, that's a great point. I hadn't even. Okay, so basically what you're saying, I completely forgot to talk about this, so I'm glad you brought it up, is that we've been talking about EWP as if you can only change things in vanilla Valheim. But what you're saying is you can use EWP to mess with modded prefabs as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So then that, like even if you don't want to be server side vanilla compatible, you can still use EWP to change modded stuff too.
Yes, you can basically use EWP to gain more control over what you can adjust in other mods.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very, very cool. I'm glad you brought that up. I completely forgot to mention it. And so now there's a couple questions here I have for you from the chat. So first I'll read one of them. Not a question, but something from Kit. He says, I don't have any questions about Infinity Hammer. Or sorry, I don't have any questions, but Infinity Hammer is the reason I have thousands of hours in this game. So just a compliment to you there, yeah. You've for what it's worth, I could actually tell looking at the Google Trends analytics when Infinity Hammer came out because it stabilized the baseline of Valheim players. So like, that's my theory. I don't know if that's true, but basically it's like vanilla Valheim is an awesome game, but it doesn't have holding power. It doesn't have staying power. People very rarely play vanilla Valheim for thousands of hours, but your mods, they give vanilla Valheim staying power. They give it that length, and things like Infinity Hammer. I mean, people like Dakar, their whole game is your mods. Like they wouldn't. I don't think Dakar would be interested in Valheim if it wasn't for Infinity Hammer and Gizmo and stuff like this. So really, hats off to you there. And let me move on to the next question from Dakar. Okay, he says, what is one change you would like from Iron Gate side that would allow you to do something with one of your mods that isn't possible now?
Well, I think that people always seem to be asking is more fields, like adding support or changing more different types of fields, like creature faction you can change and things like that, and especially those nested ones.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you could change creature attacks,
Oh, like
like
make
make the
creatures use other creatures' attacks?
yeah, or change them like bigger or smaller or things like that.
Ah,
There's
okay. So they
oh,
have like we can't mess with that stuff. So basically you're saying that the same update in the beginning that enabled EWP in the first place, something like that would open up all of the other locked up stuff that's
yeah,
currently
yeah, I think
inaccessible.
that would be nice.
Yeah, maybe
And
they'd
then I
give us
think
a clear status.
yeah, and I think another nice thing would be the player inventory, some kind of access to that.
A layer, what's a layer inventory?
I mean player.
Oh, player, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so just so you all know, yeah, EWP can't see this stuff. Like if I open my inventory, this exists on my client. It's literally nothing to the server. Like I exist, my character here with the clothes, they're called hashes, but my inventory basically doesn't exist. We can like cause weirdness to happen to the inventory. Like there's things Dakar and Raka have figured out, but it's still very limited. You can't just open it up. And this is, I'd say, the hardest thing for people to understand about EWP is exactly how its limitations work. I would say they struggle, like they think that you can just like edit a skill or edit like one of the items or add a tooltip to the item, and like we can't really do that in a reliable way, you know what I mean?
yeah, it's not really doable. Something simple would be if the server could tell the client to use some command. Then you could like raise skills or clear the inventory or
Ah, so if there's an RPC call for those kind of things instead of just
yeah,
a client command, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, what he's saying is, right now we have this other issue. Like, let's say I have, I don't know, some kind of status like this, right? Technically, we cannot remove a status in EWP, even though the client has this command, this clear status command, right? So I can get rid of my statuses, but the server can't make a client run that command. So basically, you're saying it'd be nice if there was a like an RPC call to make the server could send to the client to make them do those commands. Is that right?
yeah,
I like the
yeah.
rock hands.
I'm a rock man. Lost my strategies.
So, Alan Van Drake has some questions about Expand World code. And oh, you know, okay, before I get into his question, why don't I just ask you, what's Expand World code? Oh, did my internet have an issue or are you having an issue? I think it's yeah. I think so. At least I haven't disconnected yet. He'll probably be back in a moment. But I'll just keep going and tell you what he was about to talk to us about here. So let's see, one second. Let me just make sure we're still in the call together. What's going on? Ah, okay, his computer crashed. Okay, so I'll tell you guys about what I just asked him about, expand world code. So what we've been talking about is expand world prefabs. This is the mod that I'm like completely obsessed about. But there's actually another mod that is, if you're an actual programmer, I'm not an actual programmer. I'm not capable of programming effectively. I can script now, but I'm not a programmer. If you're an actual programmer, then Jere has a mod called Expand World Code. And this mod is technically even more powerful than Expand World Prefabs. Let me just find it real quick. Yeah, here we go. But pretty much nobody... Okay, if people don't know about Expand World Prefabs, people really don't know about Expand World Code. And basically, it allows you to run like actual code, I think on the server, if I remember right. And the reason this is so powerful is because like there's a lot of mathematics and that kind of thing that you can do with EWP, but it's actually more complicated than if you just used C or like C sharp or whatever it is, C plus, I don't know what they're doing. I'm sorry, I butchered myself there. But basically, if you actually program the thing, you can make the logic more easily. So there's things that you can't easily do with expand world prefabs, but you could like send them over to expand world code and then have that code run the stuff you wanted to. And as an example of that, there's a system on Path of Magic actually where you get a weather alert. And I actually made it kind of simple. So there's just a year cycle and the weather's always the same on a certain day. But technically, you could use expand world prefabs and make it, or sorry, expand world code and make it all automatic. One second. I think, are you back here?
Yeah, I'm somewhere.
Hey, awesome.
I'm, yeah, did respawn in some place.
Did you spawned like where we were previously, I guess?
Not exactly. I have my previous inventory.
To
Should I just go back to spawn?
Yeah, just go back to the center. I'll meet you there. Ah, cool. There's a couple other questions here. I'll get to. I'll get to your question. That's a good one, Constantine or Ping. But before that, would you mind talking a bit about expand world code? I just told them like the basics of what it is, but it's better to hear it from you.
That was pretty good. So the idea is that it's a server-side like extension to EWP that you can run custom code on the server, and then you can reference it in the EWP's scripts. Like mostly kind of you can use it as well, the way I see it, you can use it as like a test bench kind of thing. If you can do something useful with it, then I can maybe add your code to EWP so that people can use it more easily.
Except I get the impression that maybe you and like two other people are capable of understanding what it can be used for, but the rest of us, we like don't get it. I think like Haloa might be able to do something with it. But most of us,
Yeah,
like Dakar, Raka, and myself, I mean, Raka's more comfortable with like programming in these things as far as I know than I am. But and Dakar's better at math than like both me and Raka. But we still like we don't know C. We're not like programmers. So it's definitely something like I feel like is underutilized even more than EWP. Like it's hard for me to even wrap my head around how to use it.
yeah, yeah. I think it's mostly kind of proof of concept thing that it's one of those things that you kind of have to try, and not everything is ends up being super successful.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe in a year or something, someone will do something and they'll figure out what was possible with it, even though it was possible the whole time.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Ping has a question. How did involvement in Valheim affect your life? Well, he said change your life. I don't know if it changed your life, so I changed it to affect.
Well, sometimes I wonder all of these how hours I have spent modding. What if I had done something else? That's but of course it's good to have some hobby. Like I think it's not. I'm not sure if there's any big change. Like it's just fun to do some coding
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually had a question. I figured you were going to say that because I've noticed that like for you, it's like you're very I mean, you're a very skilled programmer, that's clear. So you're able to do these things and like you don't have to study a whole bunch of new stuff to do them. You're familiar with Valheim's code and you're familiar with like how Unity works in these things. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people aren't at that spot. They're not in that position, right? So I think for them, when they see what you've done, it's absolutely shocking. You've opened up so much. But I can see how for a person like you, maybe sometimes you wonder like, oh, what if I just like made my own game or something, right? Do you ever feel that way?
Well, I sometimes think about own game, but it's like, well, I like to eat. In real life.
You like to have
I mean,
time and time with your family?
yeah, and have some money to buy food and things like that.
Yeah.
Because that one downside of game development is that most of them are not successful.
Yeah.
So you want to have family with some decent income. The gaming business is not the way.
Oh, that's interesting. So if let's say that you could develop your own game and earn exactly what you earn from your current job, would you leave your job and develop a game?
Well, I think maybe at some point, like maybe it could be the next step.
Huh.
It could be interesting to try.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely in all honesty, you've shown me exactly what I want to do because you've shown that like just having a beautiful game that you can build things in isn't really enough, if that makes sense. Like Valheim is an amazing game, but I know people say it's a sandbox game, but I don't think without your mods it really is a sandbox game. It's like yeah, it's a sandbox building game in that sense. But it's not like truly sandbox until you start using like expand world prefabs, world edit commands, infinity hammer. These are the mods that really allow it to thrive. Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, could you help me understand like technically how is EWP possible? Like I don't understand how because okay, I have put tens of thousands of lines on the server, and I've written like 6,500 or 6,900 entries that are changed, and like it functions fine unless I make a mistake. It still has Valheim's problems. As you can see, having multiple players around, sometimes I don't see like the monsters, they're laggy. That's not because of EWP. That's how Valheim has always been for me. So like, I
Yeah, that's something I can't fix.
I don't get it. How does EWP work so well with so many changes? Like in my head, that shouldn't be possible. But obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about because it's possible.
Well, I think one big thing on the technical side is that when you like load the scripts, that's the slow part. It's like it's trying to do as much as possible it can. So it's like it's slowly like it's checking all of those prefabs. Like if you use those wildcards or use the component, like if you have a script that's targeting like all the trees or all the
Yeah.
monsters, it will load. It will load that like it will kind of expand that monster prehab to
To load those
it's
possibilities, so to speak.
yeah, yeah, it's the same as writing all those prehab names individually. So then when you have something happening, like a monster spawns, it instantly knows which scripts like are affecting that monster instead of having to scan through all of them.
Ah, okay. So it basically like figures out what could happen beforehand. So when the thing actually happens, it already has loaded out and figured out what to do, basically.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like if you have a bar or well, okay, let's describe what shaman. If you have like two scripts that could affect that, then it only checks those two scripts, even if you had thousands of other scripts.
Yeah.
It like it makes no difference for the like all those other scripts. They are just ignored. So as long as your scripts are kind of divided among different prehabs, then the performance should be good. But if you make like 1,000 scripts targeting the same prehab, then you might run into problems.
Yeah. I mean, I've been shocked by how stable EWP is. Like I've noticed basically that when people start using it, they think it's unreliable and they project the things from Valheim onto EWP. But at least in my experience, every time I've made mistakes, it's because I scripted something badly. It's not because like EWP isn't efficient. It seems remarkably efficient. Like I mean, even the Palm server that I've been working on for a year, it's loads and loads of scripts, and it doesn't even impact the RAM. Like literally the thing that impacts the server's RAM is the size of the server. The scripts don't seem to do anything to it. So like I don't
Yeah,
I'm confused. I don't know how that's possible. In my head, like it's too cool. It has to come with more of a cost.
yeah, well, it's only rules, but what triggers what actions, so it's not needing much.
And so, would you say it would be feasible? Like, could you imagine? I'm not saying Iron Gate will ever do this, but could you imagine like a version of a game like Valheim where EWP is like built into the game? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a mod you download. It's literally like how the dev tools work or something. Like, could you imagine something like that?
Yeah, actually, I think expand world data is good example of that. Like you have these things spawning, like locations, vegetation, biomes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about it, why can't the game? Why couldn't the game just be like that?
Yeah.
Like why can't we just have the configuration for everything?
We can go down here this time. And
Yeah.
now that you mention that, actually, maybe I can show. Okay, so we didn't talk too much about expand world data, but basically you can just run EWD or expand world data once, and then it'll generate things like the expand locations YAML. So I want to make one distinction between EWD and EWP, and that's that when you use EWP scripts, you have to write them yourself, so to speak. And so what Jere just mentioned is that with expand world data, it's different because pretty much it generates the locations and it already has all of the fields there kind of showing you what they could be. And then all you have to do is edit what's already there. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so you're saying that basically like the game itself could sort of be more like that, where you could just like the way expand world data makes it, it could just be like that from the beginning. So you could just kind of, turn on dev mode or whatever, and then you can edit all these things, but you don't need to write new scripts necessarily.
Yeah, that's like that part of code. It's very simple. It just loads the stuff. You can change it, and then it just writes it back to the same place where it got those things originally. So it's not very complicated
Yeah.
code.
And so I'm kind of wondering like, because what I've noticed is like, okay, I learned a lot from Iron Gate, and here I'm not trying to be critical of them. I'm not even talking about them from that perspective. I'm talking about them from the perspective of I want to develop games and I want to not make certain mistakes. And one of the things that I've noticed is when the game is developed, the amount of time it takes you as the developer to test ideas is really important. And I'm under the impression, yeah, maybe you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I'm under the impression that with EWP, we the players can test ideas, mechanics, and concepts faster than Iron Gate themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you
I
think
guess
that's
they could.
accurate, or am I wrong about that?
I think that's possible because well, I'm not sure how they are doing it. Like if they have to compile, if they want to change some location, they
Well,
need to
I'm okay.
compile
I'm
everything.
assuming they don't have a scripting service. Like maybe they have some in-house EWP that they use to test things quickly. I don't think so. Maybe I'm completely wrong
Yeah,
about that, but
yeah. So maybe yeah. I mean that you mention it. Like if they have these text files, they could change. Could be useful for them to just to test different things.
so I'm trying to imagine like because so what I was just explaining is one thing I've noticed with working with your mods. Um, it's so easy to learn because of the way you made it so that you can update things as you make them, if that makes sense. So like when I tried to learn how to program, one of the problems I encountered was that it just takes a while to try new things. Does that make sense? Like I can't just quickly update something. I can't just quickly reiterate it. I have to like
Yeah,
compile it and learn how to do that, right?
yeah, makes
Whereas
sense.
with EWP, you just boom, you just refresh the script, and like it literally right in front of you, it can change. And so the reason I'm harping on about this is because like I often will start a project thinking it's small, but then it's so easy to change that I think, oh, I could change that. Oh, I could change that. Oh, I could change that. And I reiterate, 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 reiterate. And before I realize it, there's been like 30 different reiterations of the thing, and it's become quite evolved and fancy. And I think this is something that's kind of missing from Iron Gate's development cycle. It seems like for them, it's very expensive to try a new thing. What do you think about that statement? Am I full of crap, or is that would you say that's accurate?
Well, I think it's hard to say without knowing how they develop these things.
Yeah, so we would have to know for sure. But
Yeah,
so the reason I mention that is just because they don't. I mean, it's just kind of shocking how easy it is to fix things. Is the thing with your tools. Like you don't have to like be like a game design master or something. You just watch players play, and then they have problems, and they're recurring problems. A lot of them are the same problems that come up over and over again, and like they're pretty simple things to rework. You know what I mean? And like, I'm pretty sure Iron Gate doesn't have these tools because, like, for example, with the Charred Fortress, we can just use your tools to poke and add a no build zone. And then as soon as they clear the fortress, we can remove the no build data from the location proxy, right?
yeah, you can kind
But
of.
if you listen to them speak about forts, they act like it's either no build or build. You see what I mean? They don't have that dynamic view of it. Like, oh, we could change that in response to, like, they don't view it that way. And another thing, like, they were talking about the Dakar's storage in another situation, and they made it seem like it was hard to adjust it. Do you know what that's about?
Well, it should be quite easy.
Yeah, but that's why I'm confused because it's not even quite easy. They already have it. It's already in their game. You don't even have to change anything. You just change the value, the container width field, and it already has an automatic slide bar. Like, or sorry, the container height field. Like so that's why I'm confused, and I'm pretty confident that they don't have these tools because it
Yeah,
seems so easy, and I'm assuming it's only seeming easy because of what you've given us, and they can't use these tools. So for them, it's actually harder and more time consuming. That's my guess.
yeah, that makes sense. That's well, lots of my effort has gone to try to make things easy to work with. That's kind of what makes it difficult to do, like how to keep it simple but powerful.
Yeah, simple but powerful. That's a good way to describe your communication style, I would say. So, for those of you who haven't been in the group, Jere is infamous and famous for one word answers that are confusing but are exactly what you need to hear. You just don't know it yet. So that's what he's referencing, I'd say. Now, is there anything you wanna tell everybody, Yex? I know we're at the point where you need to go, and we've been chatting for a while. I've asked you most of the things that I wanted to learn about. So, is there anything you'd like to discuss or mention?
Well, I think it's now maybe good to clean some air about this communication issue, so to speak. That well, I know it might seem a bit harsh sometimes my communication style there because it's kind of shortish, and people often need to ask more like questions, but at least for the new features it has a point, and it's kind of testing is the feature usable or not, because when other people are using my mods they only have to read me like at the beginning, so when I do something I try to give the same amount of information that would be on the readme, so that then I can kind of see is it easy to understand or not, and usually it's not, which is actually good feedback because then I can improve the readme too. So it kind of has a point why I'm doing it like that.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all, yeah. Like you do very good work. You like from my perspective, you could be less humble. Like you say things and I'm like, "What are you talking about, man? You're amazing." Like okay, yes, you can be short with people, but people don't read crap anyway. You know how often I tell people something and then they literally don't do what I say and then they keep talking to me and I'm like, "Just follow this step."
Yeah.
I said it's step one, do step one. And then they're like, this happened. And I'm like, did you do step one? And then they're like, no. So, so you shouldn't waste your time. That's my job and other people's job. I just want to make that very clear to you that, like, at least for me, the way you develop and yeah, with these one word answers and stuff, you're not being mean. It's not like you just say, like, no. You say the one thing that is necessary for them to know. If they don't know that, then that's where other people in the community can help. But I personally actually look up to the way that you communicate, because in other groups it's more toxic, it's more intense, there's more wordiness. Whereas you, if you're talking, you're describing how a feature works and it's useful. Like, you're not getting involved in drama, you're not getting involved in all this other nonsense. So I just want to say I really respect the way you communicate, like, genuinely.
Well, thanks. That's good to hear. And it's nice that there is the community, because that makes things much easier for me.
And so Krug's
Yeah.
Krug said hello. And by the way, his coat earlier was yellow because the capes in Valheim sometimes get clipped in front of the player when they're walking, and it looks like a dress or something. So that's what was going on earlier. And Krug says, who is this modder? This is Jere, who's made all sorts of awesome stuff like Infinity Hammer, Upgrade World. Most of what we've been talking about is about Expand World Prefabs, which is a really cool mod. You can check out some of my other content if you want to learn more about that. And I guess with that, is there anything else you want to mention? Yeah.
No.
I'll ask you one final thing then. So, yeah. So a while ago, you said Expand World Prefabs was done in the chat in Discord, and I think that was around like 1.2 or something like that. And there have been a bunch of updates since then. So I'm kind of curious, like, do you ever feel like, why is it that sometimes you feel like it's done, but then clearly you feel like adding more to it? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Like, I think it's like at that point it had the biggest features. Technically, it had the biggest features. Like, now we are just adding some small things. Like, I don't think there are any groundbreaking things like in the EWP that, like, at least with what can be done in the current Valheim.
I see. So it's sort of like, in your head, EWP is done when people aren't doing unnecessarily complicated things that you could make a lot simpler.
Yeah, I think, like, once we got the poking and change type, then I think it was like the big things were ready.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And for me, it's like that. Like, literally, the way it works, like, how do I even refer to it? I don't even, because for me, this is what I first got into. I've never programmed. Like, don't get me wrong, I studied programming in school for like a year, but I didn't do anything. I, like, learned about object-oriented languages, a little bit of C#. I didn't really do anything with it. I'm not a programmer. But my point is, like, what is this thing I'm doing with these YAML files? Like, is this a thing that happens in other situations? Is it just the syntax for your mods? Like, what is it?
Well, the YAML has own syntax, like how the, like some YAML file, like how you need to have this dash. If you have a list, you need a dash in front of it, and how you have this, you need to have this key and value format kind of things. But then lots of things are just my own syntax.
So it's like a custom YAML syntax.
Well, the YAML is that's like that's not really custom. Like there's like two steps. First is the YAML parsing, where it kind of reads the file.
And
But may
it has to be valid for that. Like it
Yeah,
absolutely must be in YAML format.
yeah. And then there is my code that kind of once you have read like those keys and values, then my code starts going through them and actually builds the logic behind it.
Okay, so it's sort of like a layer on top or within, or like it's nested within the YAML, so to speak. Like the YAML format is what's necessary for your stuff to then read it, but it has to be put in the right place for your stuff to know what to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I've noticed that people, like, I seem to have just hit the ground running and thrive with what you've done. Um, Whereas I know a couple people who are like actual programmers, who are good programmers, but they haven't been able to get into it the same way. And I'm trying to like wrap my head around that. And I think it has to do with like that when you do this with Valheim and EWP, it's pretty abstract, right? We can't just be like, okay, I'm going to hard code this goblin to have this name and this value or whatever. That's what you'd normally do in programming, right? But in this, we react to the YAML doing, or we react to the game doing something, right? So it's a little bit more abstract, I
Yeah.
guess. Why do you think it is that these logical minded people seem to struggle a little bit?
Well, it's I think it's a bit different thing that you usually like when you write software. It's like more like instructions. Do this, do this, do this, do that, and it's like almost like a book. You read it from top to bottom. But with AWP, it's like event-driven system. You have something happening, and then something else happens. So the logic is not so straightforward. And also my own syntax, it's like it's not any programming language. It's because it's like own thing. So if people know some language like C++ or C sharp, they don't really get much benefit from that because the syntax is different in my case.
Yeah, okay. So I think I understand now. So YAML is the formatting, and that's going to be the same across all YAML files wherever they're made. But in order to script, we have to learn this Jere scripting, or we have to learn about pokes and object filters and band objects and all the different kind of things and where exactly they go. And that's not something they would already know.
Yeah,
Okay. I think that that makes more sense then, because so they can't, it's not a skill that you can already have and then just start. You have to know Valheim. That's really what it, because like if you don't know that Valheim has these sound effect prefabs and that they're made and you don't know how the game works, then like that's a struggle, right? Because then it's really abstract. You have to learn what Valheim does every time you want to do something.
yeah. There's lots of Valheim specific things, like when something dies, there's some effects playing, and okay, this one drops this ragdoll, this doesn't, this does something else. Oh, there's this hidden field, hidden data. So you kind of have to know about those, at least to get the general idea how the
Yeah.
game works.
Yeah, Krug's in the chat is mentioning using AI to code being very easy. And we've actually had a lot of, well, those of us who've tried to use AI to make scripts have had issues. But from what Yere's telling me, it sounds like maybe we just have to frame it correctly to the AI. And it's never going to be able to just make like, you know, a perfect script. But I use AI when I script a lot. I don't make it make the scripts, but I make it like manage the data. For example, I have these like, I don't know if you noticed in the chat, but there's these messages that come up it like rolls a chance to do them every like 8 minutes or something. So it'll say like goblin camps are full of metal ores, or meadows breed tough but not wicked souls where sunlight fills gently. That's AI nonsense. But the idea is basically that people join the server and there's so many mechanics, there's so many things for them to learn that they're not going to read about all of them, they're not going to know about all of them. But if there's just like a message every now and then that tells them about a mechanic, then they can learn that way. But they're a little too cryptic sometimes at the moment. I kind of like it when players read something and they get this vibe of, what the hell does that mean? And then later they're like, oh, that's what I'm going for. So it's kind of like an entertaining, informative thing, but that's a tangent. All right, yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and thank you so much for this. This has been a huge treat. I know for some of the others, but especially for me. I will again thank you, because for me personally, I was suffering, so to speak, because I wanted to develop games, but I was aware of the hypocrisy of the fact that I wasn't practicing game development. I wasn't coding. I wasn't watching players do something. But then your tools have allowed me to do what I wanted to do in the future, but now, because I realized like it's going to be expensive for me to make and test things myself, but I can just use the tools Jere has made to make close similar situations and then watch what players do and then reiterate. And I develop my game design sense without having to pay for any education. And it's all thanks to your incredible tools and also the work Iron Gate's done as well. But I will say at this point, I used to be very much like, Iron Gate's amazing, incredible, they've done all this, and you've done the mods, and that's cool. But now it's the opposite. Iron Gate's alright, but I see now that for me, it's not their game that sold me Valheim. It was you. It was the things you have done, the things you've enabled us to do, like meeting people like Dakar and 9byte, seeing what they've done with your mods. This has really changed my life. So as that question earlier, maybe your work hasn't changed your life with Valheim, but the things you've done has changed other people's lives. And I'm very much one of those people. So thank you so much, Jere. I really, really appreciate what you've done. And even if you just effed off and never updated anything again, thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. It has been a pleasure. And actually, yeah, maybe that was a bit of a lie when I said it didn't have any effect on my life, because, of course, I think the community has been maybe the best part so far. Like the developing itself, it's not. But they're great people. Helping others and seeing things grow has been nice.
Yeah, it's
kind
wonderful.
Feeling like positive impact on things.
And that's the ultimate lesson that I've learned, and I'll end with this, is that games and game design isn't about the game. It's about tricking people into interacting with other people, tricking people into forming a community and participating. The game is just a trap to get the person to do that. And that's my philosophy now. And thank you. Thank you for giving me everything I've needed and all the others. Really, really awesome stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to see your human traps in the future.
Yeah, the Enigma project will be out soon. So that'll be a whole thing. That's a whole other can of worms to go into, how we can have these, people don't realize it yet, but your scripts or your mods can be packaged into a mod pack, put on R2, and then a player is one click away from a customized script that they don't even know about. So that's a whole other thing. But anyway, don't want to take up too much more time. Thanks so much, Jere, and thank you for everyone who's watching and participating. If any of you want to talk or you know somebody who would like to do one of these live streamed conversations, then just reach out to me. I have a little scheduling link I send people, and then they just set it up, and it's really casual. I'm not trying to stress people out or anything, not trying to be controversial. I want to be a place anyone can come to just chat about Valheim, show their passions, etc., etc., etc. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, okay?
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Good end there, good end. It even gave you a memorial, that's funny.
Nice.